Hi there. Uh, Today's book I'm going to talk about, I picked up in a book kiosk in a station in Liverpool. I was looking for something to read and I was browsing the different books. And to be honest, I was quite put off by the cover and by some of the people who praised the book in the blurb because at first glance it seemed to be in the horror genre, and I'm not really into that. But looking inside, I realised it was a more crime fiction. And I bought the book, and at 3 o'clock in the morning, I still hadn't put it down. It gripped me so much. And it's this book, Red Dragon by Thomas Harris. The main theme of the book really is the work of the FBI's Behavioral Science Unit, and it's the first fictional book I know to cover the subject. And it really kicked off a whole genre of serial killer fiction. Um, Something that Mas Ayub wrote in The Truth About Self-Protection, which I reviewed a while back, is that you don't really have to create these mythological werewolves and vampires because there are monsters every bit as bad in our society. And the behavioral science unit's job was to profile them and to track them down. So the main character of Red Dragon is a retired FBI agent, and he retired because he was involved in a really bad case, and he ended up being stabbed, and he's medically retired. And he's brought back because there's a serial killer who's killing whole families. The person who stabbed him and the case he was involved in before was Hannibal Lecter. And Red Dragon is the book which introduces the character of Hannibal Lecter, which of course has become one of the biggest monsters in popular fiction, both in the movies and the books. So the plot develops, and we find out that this killer, his name's Francis Dollarhide, and it goes into his backstory and what made him the monster. So a fantastically gripping book, and although it's not horror fiction, there are some truly horrific passages in it. Thomas Harris did his research very, very well. He consulted the FBI, and he also there's a lot of forensic science detail in there as well, which makes the book very authentic sounding. Stuff on firearms too is very interesting. He has his main character is armed with a 44 special revolver, a Charter Bulldog, and he has it loaded with Glazer safety slugs. And the reason being was he'd already in the case with Hannibal Lecter, he'd emptied a 38 special into the monster without stopping him. So he had no faith in that. And there's a section in the book where his family comes under threat from Dollarhide, and he takes his wife to the range to give her some training in the pistol. And the rangemaster looks out and he sees that they're using a 44 special, and he says, odd arm for a Fed. It was a Bulldog 44 special, short and ugly with its startling big bore. It had been extensively modified by Magnaport. He suspected it was throated for the speed loader, one hell of a mean pistol when it was loaded with what the Fed had waiting. He wondered how the woman would stand up to it. And the ammunition was the Glazer. Now, at the time the book was written, the Glazer safety slug was kind of a wonder ammo. And basically, it's a round that has 300 pieces of shot in a capsule. The bullet is the capsule, suspended in liquid Teflon. Unlike a shot load from a pistol, like snake shot or whatever, it doesn't disperse from the bore, but it travels to the target in a in the capsule, penetrates the target, and then disperses the payload. And these 300 spheres, and a sphere being the largest surface area in any given shape, it dispenses the shock into the target very, very well. Now, that's the theory. It does wonderful things on the range. You can shoot it through a piece of wood and it will go through the wood intact. But as soon as you hit soft medium, it disperses the payload. So we all thought at the time it had a lot of promise. It did have some stops and some spectacular results, but all the ones that I know about were stops that probably would have worked with conventional hollow point ammo, headshots, and in one case a neck shot, side to side through the neck. So it's fallen out of favour, and you don't really hear of it anymore now. But Thomas Harris put it in the book, and the range session finishes with his wife. She was pumping all 5 of the glazers. It was not standard federal practice. The rangemaster wondered what in God's name they saw in that silhouette that it would take 5 glazers to kill. So it's quite a chilling portrayal of the kind of threat of these serial killer monsters. Like many books, it was made into a movie. In fact, it was made into 2 movies. And the first movie it was made into was Manhunter. Manhunter is the series about the FBI. Manhunter, directed by Michael Mann. It was a really good film, and in fact it's regarded today as something of a classic. It ran into budget problems, so there was a bit of a problem towards the end. In my opinion, Michael Mann did a great job. He's a fantastic director. My only gripe with it really was the actor portraying Dolarhyde. I don't think he was really up to the job. The second film that they made was called Red Dragon, and it had a really good cast. Edward Norton played the FBI agent, Will Crawford, who had been played by William Peterson in Manhunter, and Ray Fiennes played Dolarhyde. I thought he did a really good job on that. My problem with Red Dragon is the same problem I had with Silence of the Lambs, which was the other Hannibal Lecter starred movie, where I think the director really, in both cases, was a lightweight who'd previously done romantic comedies, couldn't really handle the material. I always wonder what Silence of the Lambs would have been like as a movie had it been directed by William Friedkin, for example. Anyway, the Red Dragon came out in, I think it was 82, 83, the book, and it wasn't until 5 years later that the sequel came out. I was in Detroit. We were presenting a close protection course, and we had a spare day, and Evan Marshall, who was one of the training team, who was from Detroit, he took us to Grosse Pointe because I wanted to go to the Banana Republic store. And next to it was a bookshop, and as I passed, I glanced in the window, and there was Silence of the Lambs, just published that day. The name Thomas Harris caught my eye. I bought it, and in between my sessions on the course, I read it, and in between Evan's sessions on the course, he read it, and I finished it, and I left it with him because obviously I'm not going to leave a guy in suspense. Evan was a Detroit homicide cop, and he said the behavioral science unit of the FBI was their best part of that organization, that did a really good job. So, of course, Silence of the Lambs followed, and then later on, I think after a gap of 11 years, Hannibal came along, which was a really good book, and I think it was the best of the movies. So there you have it, Red Dragon.